Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Reviewing Comics with me, Alexander Turbin, your host. This week we're doing Killing Stroke. It's an anthology from 1991 of British artists and writers. I think they're all British. It does say the best in new British horror, so I'm assuming that they're all British. But before we get into this, I'd like to show you some of my own comics that hopefully can support the channel if you guys deem to check them out. You can go to patreon.com/Alexander Turbin to get a full size, full color, 12-page comic book every month delivered to your door just for $2. Um, like I said, they're full size, full color. And I do these monthly for my Patreon patrons for just $2 a month. I also have these on my website, alexanderturbin.com, and there you'll find all of the random accesses and Mutandis and Forlorn and all of the other stuff that I've done over the years. Cyrene the Cleric is a compilation of stories from Random Access, which is what my whole intention is to have compilations of comics, so you're not just reading the anthology every month. It's kind of an anthology. It's an anthology that has three rotating stories of different content. Excuse me. So the Killing Stroke. I keep wanting to put the in front of it, and it's from Eternity Comics, which is one of my favorite comic book publishers. They actually didn't publish as many comics as I thought. They've only done maybe 20 titles, I think, but they're all of pretty good quality. This one looks like it might be have been done a little bit later than the other ones. You can see the Eternity graphics right here is really pretty nice. The first thing you want to see or notice in this comic is the cover, done by Mark Buckingham, and it's a beautiful watercolor um, um, illustration painting, and it's actually has to do with one of the stories inside the book, so that's really always good. I enjoy a cover that has to do with one of the stories in a book of anthologies more than just have not having to do with anything. Having said that, I've done that before, and it does happen. My only problem really is Killing Stroke. I kind of wish that they had maybe colored this in with a different color, because it kind of looks it's kind of hard to read. Um, I mean, you've got this nice stroke here, and you're like killing. It's in it just I think they could have filled that in maybe, and it would have been nicer. Maybe given it that eternity blue. Also, it's the introduction by Jamie Delano, and it's kind of unusual because he doesn't really say a whole lot. He just kind of waxes poetic about the type of horror this is, and this is horror, as we're doing this continuing this October horror theme comic book, and this is quite apropos because the horror in this book kind of coincides with the horror that we're living with now in Maine, which is the gunman that killed 18 people and wounded 50 or 60 more, and that really is horror in and of itself. And really, this book, it has a lot to say about that kind of thing, and maybe not in a good way. Um, so it's nice that they have this inside cover space. It tells all the stories very succinctly. It's in anthologies. You really should say exactly who's doing the work, and who the art writer is, who the artist is, and the introduction and all that stuff. And this is really, it's a nice illustration, and it's really set up nicely. There's no confusion as to who's doing what or where it is. um, the other horror anthology that I did recently reviewed was the Tipper Gore anthology, and that kind of was a little bit harder to follow as far as who did what. But um, I would say that that had a little bit more to say. This has a lot to say, but it's in a very very bleak way, and it's kind of leaves a lot of things open ended. Uh, like the first story is by Andrew Elliott and drawn by Disraeli Demon Drochman and lettered by H.V. Derisi. Um, it's super Brazil inspired, where there's just this guy and he's at his desk and he has this fantasy. You don't realize that it's a fantasy until later on. But he grabs a wrench and he's kind of going on a one man tirade against the society that he's living in and the machine that he feels is grinding his soul into dust, which is the machine. And so he goes over to the machine, which is a giant pit. It's a giant pit, and that's where the machine lies. Which is, I mean, you could take a lot of guesses as to what it is, whether it's hell or whether it's just an inorganic machine controlling society, whether it's the government or whatnot. But he throws his wrench in the machine and it starts to break down and it breaks down and everybody's happy and um, gleeful, and then you realize that it was just a dream and he was daydreaming, and so he kind of hems and haws and goes off to where the machine really is, and so he goes down to the basement, and instead of throwing a wrench in the machine, he gets up onto the edge and throws himself into the machine. Doesn't stop anything. Just gums up the works. Doesn't even slow things down. Just gets some blood on the security guard that's down there trying to stop him. Um, I really like. I'm going to go by the art and everything, story by story, so I don't get confused and lost. Um, it's really nicely drawn, nicely told. It's very simple line work. It's done in more of a cartoony style, which is perfectly all right. It's almost done in a Dave Mazzucchelli simplistic style that he has later on, with lots of blacks and lots of undershadows and increased with his line work. It kind of goes from the line work to the shadows, which is really how the story goes. And his line work is very I'm gonna say plain, but it's not plain. It's very organic, I guess I would say, and it's seamless. Everything goes. It's a perfectly told story. You know exactly what's going on. One of the really interesting things is the lettering underneath the chugga 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 chugga, which is the machine always going on during the whole story. Chugga chugga clunk 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 chugga chugga. And then when something happens, it's that looked like a panel Walter Simonson would draw. Um, but the story is legible. It's it's legible. It's you know exactly what's going on, even when it's a daydream and it kind of flashes back to his daydream. You perfectly understand what's happening, and that's a very good thing to do in comics. Um, it's like I said, it's heavily inspired by Brazil. And in 1991, I think that this probably was very fascinating and an unusual story. This has been done over and over again. I'm not going to say this is um, bad because of that, because it may have been one of the first times that it was done. But I've seen it before. I probably have seen it better. I probably have seen it worse, but I'm not going to deride that because of that. Um, it's this whole book is very bleak, and as I said, we had the shooter this past few days, and he's still on the loose, and really, when you get down to it, that's probably how the shooter felt. They were saying that he had was hearing things in his head, which is kind of what is goes on throughout this whole book. Is social anxiety, social insanity, social depression, which is all of that. And it's how you deal with it. You can either throw yourself into the machine or you can um, just try to take everybody with you. And really, this is horror for me. This is probably the worst horror um, that is imaginable because it's real. Uh, you have you don't have ghosts and goblins that are real. I don't believe. I mean, I'm atheist, agnostic, Zen Buddhist, so I don't believe that there's a God, and I don't believe in ghosts and spirits and evil creatures and the devil and all of that. I believe in a social construct that can create a mental instability and emotional instability, and that's what happens. And a gunman taking all those lives is the true horror because it's real, just like real serial killers. That's true horror. It's like in this next story, which is done by Henny, Cretchley, and Dilworth. It's just this little girl, and she wakes up in, I don't know, the middle of the night or morning or whatever. I guess there's the moon, and there's just this image of a guy who has an axe, and that's her parents. She's saying, "Mommy and Daddy," and this is a very short story. And then she runs away, um, and then he shows up in her room with the axe, and she's just remembering her mother and father and praying to God that he doesn't do the same thing to her, but he does. This this is not entertainment for me. Um, I'm not going to say it shouldn't be published because I don't believe in censorship at all, but this isn't for me. It's not the kind of horror that I really like. I recently watched that movie on Hulu. No One's Gonna Help You, and I really enjoyed it. It wasn't horror per se, but it harkened back to the 1950s horror movies of aliens and stuff, and it was done in a different way, and it wasn't just nonsensical violence that could happen. This could happen. Somebody could come into your house with an axe and kill you. It could very well could happen. Um, that being said, as a story, it's perfectly fine. The writing's perfectly fine, and the art is really, really great, really fantastic. I mean, look at her eyes and her emotions, the most beautiful emotions. I don't know if this is that. No, that's different. This is a different panel, and the panel sequences are perfect. This is almost a perfectly drawn comic book as far as the art is concerned. Uh, Perfect emotion. You've got this guy in the shadows. This is a horror comic, and it's not for me because I believe that true horror. Um, I don't really want to see it, but here it is. The little girl just getting chopped up. Could happen, has happened, will happen again because people are evil. Um, so this is a beautiful panel. It is so difficult to have an upshot of the face like that, where you're showing the bottom of the chin in any kind of way. If he had just put a line across instead of this hatching, it would have ruined the whole thing. And this, the teddy bear going black ink as the axe falls down. It's a beautifully drawn comic. I just really, after the events of the last few days, this is just too much like reality. Too much like reality. Um, all of these stories are incredibly bleak. They don't leave it open ending. There's no possibility of the hero coming to save the day. There's no possibility of any kind of change in what the people are doing or whatever. Here's this guy, and he's talking about the different after nuclear war. Here's this one panel, And this is done by Crutchley Oakley, and Oakley, I guess, who's the artist, and he's really pretty good. He's got some nice line work. Um, but here's this guy. He's defending his home. He's in his gas mask. He's got his machine gun or his gun, and he's thinking about the different types of people that could come and try to steal all of his stuff. He's in his bunker, and he's thinking about all the stuff that all of the zombies or mutants or roving gangs, and he's just trying to think of, is he strong enough to withstand these people? And then you find that it's just a kid, and this is his garage or whatever, his fall down shelter. That's just a house that is in the back of his yard, and his mother's calling him in for dinner or whatever. And so it's sad that this kid, that's his fantasy, that's his fear, is what's going to happen. It's kind of like that Daredevil run that Ann Nesenti did and John Romita Jr. did, where the kid had a paralyzing fear of nuclear war. And that is completely understandable because that's a horrible thing in of itself. Still, another bleak ending. Nothing's going to happen correctly, I guess. Here's Crutchley and Ben Dilworth, I think. And this is just a guy thinking about his situation where he is infatuated, has fallen in love with somebody that he works with, but he has a wife and kids, and he's struggling with himself as to why he's wanting this other woman. And really, this kind of hits home, I think, for everybody, because every couple has um, I don't know, fantasies of what would have happened with somebody else, or what another person, or it's just, this is the human condition. And I think this is what differentiates this from the Tipper Gore comic, is this is all about the darker side of the human spirit. And it's not so much horror, it's just the human condition. And that is very oftentimes horrific in itself. And I mean, he's thinking about his wife and his kids and the new woman that he's met. And it's almost like there's this bird that keeps flying around as he's talking to himself about that. And it's almost as if the bird is the woman. She's the illusion. She is unattainable to him. She's so far away. She's almost an illusion. And so he just goes along, and then there's the wife and kids, because he's on a cliffside, and they're like, come get some pizza or whatever. Or what? Are you going to jump? And the look on his face is like, yeah, I'm going to jump. I'm either going to jump metaphorically and go be with this other woman, or I'm going to jump physically and crash into the rocks below. So again, human condition. It's bleak. It's dark. Maybe this is something that could have turned that shooter into what he was. It's all about humanity, and it's dark, and it's dirty, and it's sick. I think this is the last story, and this in fact ties in the most with what has happened, because here's this guy. He's in some sort of a bunker himself. He's got a gun. He's got a demon protection carved into his skin. I feel like it's carved in. It could just be makeup, but that would be stupid. And he just kind of goes back in his life, deciding where things change. His dad, he's happy with his family, and then his dad changes, takes some kind of injury, and becomes different, and starts becoming abusive to him and his mother. And so he keeps saying that demons are in him, and that's a common theme within the stories, that there's demons. And in the beginning, it's saying that he's going to fight the demons when they show up. And So then it goes along with he's with his mother, and after the dad dies, the grandfather moves in, and the grandfather is almost a ray of light. He shows him comic books, and he gets him to use his imagination. He gives him this wooden sword, and in his imagination, he's a Conan like character, and he can fight off all of these evil things that have gone on in his life. And I mean, everybody should have that. Everybody should have somebody that can turn the dark side of things into something magical. Unfortunately, everybody doesn't have that. And so the grandfather dies, and he goes into a further uh, depression, recession, um, I don't know, whatnot. Here's him looking at all of the books in his grandfather's library. Um, it's weird because the writing changes, because I guess it turns in from a flashback into a writing into a diary type situation. And it goes, and he talks about things in his life. He meets a woman, he gets a job, meets a woman. Uh, he tries to make out with her, but she doesn't want to. It's very very harsh. Um I almost think he rapes her, because why would she just be crying if he tried to kiss her and he didn't? I don't know. There's something very not right going on in this panel as far as his relationship with her, because it's a lot darker. He has his clothes off, and they're in her apartment. So I have the feeling that he rapes her. Um, so then he things aren't going the way he wants to, so he goes off to war, and that just damages him, his psyche and his emotional state even more. And he comes home and he's completely lost it. He thinks everybody is devils and demons and creatures. Uh, he even thinks his mother is a demon, so he kills her. And I think he just goes on and killing rampage. And this Conan that he used to be is now the Conan in his mind, and he just goes on a rampage. And yeah, I think all of the demons. It's strongly insinuated that all of the demons that he's going to fight are actually people. So it's like I said, it's very apropos, especially this last page, which is just a single page thing. His head, my shotgun, no contest. This is what that guy's thinking. That's on the run right now. He's thinking, um, who knows what he's thinking? But this is, it hits too close to home at the moment, and I don't think this isn't the quality kind of horror that I find entertaining. This isn't entertaining for me. I'm sure it is for a lot of other people. Um, and if you're into that kind of thing, then this is the perfect book for you. It's dark, it's dreary, um, but it's very well done. It's well written, well drawn. The introduction is great by Jamie Delano, who did the first run on Constantine, and he's done a lot of dark stuff himself for DC. Um, but if you enjoy this, then this is great. I can't deny the quality of the work, especially the cover, but the art on the inside is really beautiful. It's crisp, it's clean, it's understandable. You know what's going on, and it's the line work is beautiful. So I can't put my own personal bias into reviewing a book just because of something that happens in the real world, or because of my own, likes and dislikes. I will say that when you're reading something or listening to music or watching a movie, it really does affect your real life affects how you see the movie, how you see the show, how you hear the music. If you're in a relationship and you break up, and you pound yourself with sad music or relationship breakup music, you're always going to have some sort of affinity for that kind of music, because that's where you were at that time in your life. Um, if you're at a different point in your life and you're reading this, then you could totally have a different outlook on how the book is and how it reads. As far as I'm concerned, though, it's a beautiful book, and it's worth the read if you like horror. And I might just be being harsh on it. I would give it a 9. Yeah, it's a strong 9. It's everything is good with it, except for, like I said, how it hits home at the current time. Um, but if you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell, and if you like my work, please consider joining my Patreon or checking my stuff out on alexanderturbin.com. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.